time for spoilers. So if you haven't seen this film, get on out of here, guys. And if you are watching on YouTube, head back to part 1. We've got more of our general thoughts and whatnot.
And we'll say a lot of things in that non-spoiler review that we won't talk about this time. So watch that before you judge how we feel about the film.
Exactly.
Can I jump in with a starting point here?
Let's get in there.
Since we can't really talk about this in the non-spoilers, what do you guys think of Arthur Fleck, the Joker, as an overall character, as his portrayal in this film from beginning to end? Because I thought it was a very noticeable...
departure.
Well, just a very noticeable feature of his character that he was very much unhinged from the get-go.
Yes.
Like, this wasn't the Killing Joke story of a normal man who had a bad day and spiraled out of control and turned into the Joker after going insane. Like, this was a guy who was on this path
Mentally ill.
from his childhood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was an interesting creative choice.
Yeah. I really loved the concept of the Joker's laugh being like a mental
Like a tick.
disability,
Yeah.
Me
and that
too,
it would
yeah.
actually hurt him.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
like
That's such a cool-
from a head injury.
Yeah.
When he was younger, he has this laugh that just comes out in moments of emotional stress and stuff.
Which is a real thing.
I don't think that's ever been used for the Joker before, and I
No.
love it.
I thought it was
And it's
amazing.
such an obvious thing. Like, I mean, it's a fairly obscure diagnosis. Like, it is a real disease, and like,
Really?
you know,
Damn.
it does happen. But like, it's not.
No, it was so interesting.
It's such a obvious like way to take with that character.
And right from like the first scene, he's laughing and clearly in pain. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
great.
in his back of his throat, and he's getting this tickle, and it's almost like
yeah.
choke.
Yeah.
And I loved
That made me uncomfortable because I mean,
Yeah.
like, I know that. Like, oh,
And that initial scene on the bus quite early on where he's sort of goofing around with that kid, and then he's getting that crazy laugh and has to hand over the card. Another really great moment.
what an awesome piece of exposition.
yes.
So I mean, like, that's one of the few times where like a
Like text.
like text
Yeah.
or you know, just throwing out an explanation works because that
Very
that
organic.
fits into the what would actually happen with that kind of
Totally.
inflection. So I mean, that I thought was really cool. In terms of the way that the character progresses, I think that, you know, it's obviously kind of taken to an absurd level, but it does speak to, you know, how we treat those that are different, that have mental illness. And I think that is a really cool exploration. I think that's a really good take on the Joker as a little bit
Yeah.
more of a darker, grittier, like, how do we create a Joker? Let's put him into, you know, let's just take a normal situation of how we treat mentally ill people and just ramp that up to 11.
Yeah, for a movie that a lot of people were concerned would be like an incel rallying cry or like some white supremacist thing, it really was, the thrust of it was, this mentally ill person has not been looked after by his own country. The healthcare system has spat this guy out because things were being defunded, and society just destroyed him.
Yeah, pretty much.
And what I found really interesting about the film was I was examining. When I was done, I wasn't looking around and being like, "Oh, who's the next Joker in this massive?" I'm thinking like, "What can I do to be a better person?" Because it made me self-examine myself.
That's cool.
You know, like
how do you treat people that might be going through something that you're not aware of?
maybe you're not even exactly, not even aware, and you say, "Hey, what the fuck, man? You know, look at you motherfucker." And maybe you've tipped somebody over the edge when it was not your intent, but
Yeah.
The movie does a great job of telling that story until it decides to just tell it at
Yeah,
the end.
exactly.
When a character who did not strike me as someone particularly self-aware actually refers to himself as a mental health patient who's been ignored by society, I'm like, where is he getting this from?
Yeah.
This was never his MO. He's off his meds now. He should be jokerier than ever. But it got
That
it
felt
got
like
way
the
too.
most, you know, tell instead
Yeah.
of showing.
that
moment.
wasn't
Or sorry,
very
yeah.
elegant.
That to me was like, oh, they've just. There was a couple of moments in this movie where I felt like they were worried that the audience wasn't going to get it, and one of them was around one of
Zazie
my
Beetz.
my favorite and least favorite moments of this film, which is the Zazie Beetz storyline, which I don't know. My thought was that the movie kind of expected you to understand that the whole relationship wasn't real. And so when they did the reveal, I thought the reveal was awesome the way that they did it. Like,
Yes.
who are you? Because there's a part of your brain that's like, is it real? Isn't it real?
Yeah.
Like that. I love that kind of the mentally ill
Yes.
aspect of it.
Schizophrenic.
Yeah, like
What's
and
real? What isn't
you know,
real?
and along with what I thought was about like 90% of the audience was like, 90% sure that that's not real, but there's always the chance that it is. You get that moment where she doesn't know who he is in the apartment, and then they do the dumbest thing, which is do the Beautiful Mind flashback bullshit.
The Fight Club,
Yeah,
like re-showing
which-
all the scenes we've seen with her and then showing her not there.
Which is valid in Fight Club, which is valid in Beautiful Mind, which is not valid here.
I think you got the point. I think it slapped you over the head with it. And yeah, I thought that was a really great moment to kind of just go, oh shit, like leave it as
it was so perfectly done. When she walks out and says, "Your name's Arthur," right? Like, if you didn't already get it, you get it. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, she doesn't know who this guy is.
And wasn't she in the same clothes every time in every scene or something? And
I
she
didn't
like did
catch
the
that.
same nod or something. Maybe
Like the same smile.
maybe
type,
maybe I looked into it too much. But I felt like I already got it, you know.
Totally.
And then
I mean, and there was something very like there was something kind of, for me, it was very obvious. Like, for example, that first interaction where she comes up, she said, "Were you following me?" And he goes, "Yes." And she's somehow endeared by that. It's
Yeah.
like, here's number one: women don't react
yes,
to being followed like that.
That's the thing. Okay, so
Like,
I
obviously this is not real.
I knew absolutely that it wasn't real because based on the early word from this film, I was under the impression that I was watching a good movie, and a good movie would not have that relationship take place the way it's
Yes.
executed and have it be a real thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was like, well, that's an obvious tell. Unless this
yeah.
is actually a really bad movie,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
isn't happening. Yeah.
And there was
Yeah.
a point where I was going, I'm not enjoying the way this girl's handling herself, but I have a feeling this is going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see how this plays out.
Which is, I mean, it fit into the character so perfectly.
Yeah.
Like, I
Great
mean,
direction.
In retrospect, it's absolutely perfect. The relationship makes zero sense, but to the character, it's real.
Exactly. And that's why the actual reveal scene feels great because you do see it coming and it feels like a reveal to him, not to us.
Yeah. But even like, and this is something I really enjoyed. It feels like a reveal to him, but also at the same time, it's like he knew. It was just he wanted to believe it so bad that he
Yeah.
let himself get carried away by the fantasy. So there's that kind of, I don't know how Joaquin Phoenix did it, but, and maybe this is just me
Dark
bringing
magic.
this is bringing my own interpretation to it. But that scene where, you know, she's confronting him, like, "Do you want me to call your mom?" I think that is equal parts him knowing it and also finding it out.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of own interpretations, that scene opens up this movie to a lot of wildly different what's real, what isn't stuff.
Yeah.
Just first up, something a friend asked me the other day, which hadn't even occurred to me. Do you think he kills Zazie Beetz?
So that was my first thought when he exited the room.
Because he leaves the room, we never see her again after that.
Exactly.
Oh, I didn't even think
And
about
I
that.
love the darkness of that implication, and I love the ambiguity of it as well.
So do I.
Even though I would honestly like to have them to have been a little more explicit about the Joker's evilness in this movie, because a lot of what he does, you can almost justify.
It's
or,
revenge,
or he's
yeah.
doing bad things against bad people.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
of it.
He doesn't have that maniacal Joker. Like there always seems to be, whether or not you agree with it, it's not like the Joker burning money in The Dark Knight. You know, it's
he's
not like-
hurting people who've wronged him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And obviously obviously you can't justify it, but in his mind he's able to justify it, and you can kind of follow that thread along.
Yeah, so I thought it would have been interesting if they just went full unlikable on him. And you don't necessarily
I
need
already
to
found
confirm
him
that he
very
killed Zazie
unlikable.
Beetz. Yeah, definitely. But even the scene where he kills the guy who gave him the gun, and then he lets the little guy
Yeah.
go. I'm like, if they had gone a different direction with that, I think that could have been interesting. Or even again gone in a more ambiguous direction with it.
Talk about building up the tension.
Yeah.
That scene where he's trying
The
to
latchkey?
get the latch that's heart stopping.
I know, and it's so brilliantly set up because
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I knew exactly when he locked that thing when they came in. I'm like, oh,
It's
fuck,
all I was thinking about when he's
man.
like, "Can I go?" I was like, "Oh, the latch."
That's brilliant. So yes, interpretation. There is a major plot point in this film, which is Arthur Fleck the son of Thomas Wayne?
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that for a bit.
Yeah, and that is that starts out as I felt pretty hammy storyline that I thought
Totally.
was handled so well,
Really well.
and again left fairly ambiguous. You could really take it either way at the end of this film.
I love this kind of like Bruce Wayne, you know, model child living in upstate, amazing. You know, look at the house he lives in.
His
He's
little
getting the best of the
outfits.
best. And this Arthur Fleck character is just being cast out. And I thought that's the dichotomy that I loved. I thought that was a really interesting ingredient
and a
to this.
great basis for a relationship
Trichotomy.
between the Joker and Batman. Not to say
Yeah.
that'll ever necessarily happen, But just the way this movie ends, where you can see where that obsession would come from, it's brilliant. There's just a seed of the kernel,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I thought all that stuff, the stuff with Thomas Wayne was quite interesting. I think, some of the stuff where it's like,
Bit
you're all
heavy-handed.
clowns.
Yeah.
Everyone's a clown. And then, and then the final bit where you get the bloody murder scene again
Yeah.
with the pearls, the bloody pearls.
The-
Have to grab the pearls,
So that interaction between, all right, there's two things that I want to talk about with that interaction between Arthur Fleck and Thomas Wayne. First of all did you guys feel like it was a little bit heavy-handed? Like, do you think it was a bit, kind of too on the nose? He's like,
When he confronts him in the bathroom, or
yeah.
Yeah.
And the second part is, do you think it happened? Because there is a strong kind of hint that it didn't, because he finishes up on a position at the sink, and then the next scene is him in the exact same position over his own sink, which could just be a cool cut, or could be, them suggesting that he imagined that interaction.
I took it as literal, and
So did
I loved that portrayal of Thomas Wayne as just an absolute dick. Like,
So you didn't feel it was over the top?
no, I thought it was great. I loved him as just like, he seemed like the kind of guy who would be, a big kind of business magnate.
Big banker.
Like the kind of guy who has that, like, if you cross him, like, I love that line where he's just like, if you touch my kid again, I'll fucking kill you. I'm like, that's cool. I could see Bruce Wayne being like that even.
Yeah.
I thought he's great. A really good portrayal. There's not a lot of other actors who get a chance to shine in this movie. I thought he was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the unreliable narrative in this is really interesting, and it makes you question a lot of scenes even later on that I had a bit of a problem with. It's like, oh, maybe that's his reality, that we're not actually
Exactly.
seeing the real reality.
As his mindset was turning around, I figured a lot of what he was seeing of people supporting the clown killer was maybe in his head. He's seeing someone going by in a car in a mask, and he's saying to his therapist, people are starting to notice me.
Yes.
I'm like, how much of this is just in his head?
Yeah, even to the point with him on the set, taking out De Niro, I was like, did that actually happen?
Well, and the ending feels very dreamlike. After he gets in this horrific car accident,
Yeah.
then he gets dragged out of the car, he's dancing on top, he's got a million people cheering for him.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
So that was one area, and my wife Ashley and I had a major debate about this. Like,
So did me and my fiance.
yeah,
So did me, and
yeah. But we had a major debate about, like, is it cool that at the end? Okay, there was a couple things. Number one, is it cool that at the end Joker's there?
As the
Celebrating, and he's the hero. He's the hero of the people that have been shut out by society, the people who, everyone like the Joker, all the people at the bottom.
So this was where I got a little bit uneasy with this film, and this is where I wanted some kind of counter, or I wanted some kind of tonality shift towards the end, because I'll give you an example of another Scorsese film, which is Wolf of Wall Street, where they had a really tough job of taking someone that had on the surface, a really good life. The Wolf of Wall Street, he parties and he does all this thing that people are cool. And they have to take this film and be like, how do we film it? And how do we tell this story so that at the end, you are like, that's not a good person. Or
how do we
this is
show him
not-
as a villain in a narrative, in a real world
Where he's the
narrative where
protagonist.
he never had his comeuppance? Yeah.
Exactly. So I think they pulled that off to a certain extent with The Wolf of Wall Street, which is a really tough thing, which means it should be somewhat easier to do that with the Joker. And I felt like they went the exact opposite direction. Like, how do we show him as kind of the hero of the story?
So
And that to me felt really weird, because I'm like, he is quite clearly a despicable person in this. Like, there's no real, genuinely redeeming characteristic of this person. So
you can only feel sorrow for him, but he's just being unjustifiably shat out. He was abused when he was a kid, or you list the things out that went wrong for him.
And there's a million things that kind of. That
So it's
make
like negative, positive. It's not like, is there anything justifiable? Is there anything good? Is there anything?
I wanted the film to kind of show that, he is the villain, and this is what I was talking about when I said that the fact that this was a Joker film actually saved it for me. Because when I think about this in terms of purely an origin story, and that he is the villain to Batman, he is the villain that he is the bad guy, that in my mind kind of justifies that ending.
Yeah, and
in a
that's
little bit
exactly
more.
the same thing I was saying to Ash. I was saying like, yeah, maybe this crowd like cheering him on, maybe this is going to egg on certain people, and maybe some people are going to go, hey, I can be like him. But then I would always say, but we're watching a Joker origin movie. At the end of the day, we're watching a guy who's completely unhinged, and he's going to have people, it's sort of like you
Which
got to
have
take one
think
with
about
the other in a
the
way.
context of the DC universe, as like this is like at some point his dichotomy is Batman, but as a film on its own, the way that it ends, it kind of makes me a bit. It just weirds me out a bit. Like I feel like they were missing a piece.
For whatever reason, it completely worked for me because, and I'll tell you why. Because, like I was saying, how the ending where he was getting cheered on by this crowd in this riot, that really did feel more dreamlike to me. That felt like a little more of his perception. That also felt like a big crowd of criminals as well. So, and it kind of felt like the source of his power, because this is not the mastermind Joker we've seen before. This felt like someone who had more social power, and that's the only way he could be a threat to someone like Batman. And also the scene where he's on the Murray Franklin show as the Joker, the crowd did not support him at all, like they do on the streets. The crowd they're not amused by him. They don't find him funny, and they find him horrific when he does actually commit his acts of violence. It's only when he's out on the streets that we see people supporting him. So
But
that feels more right.
If the clowns were contextualized as criminals, that's fine. But the clowns are all contextualized as lower socioeconomic individuals, and so that's where I'm like, oh, what are we doing here? What are we? But if we're going for it's a dream, I can vouch for it.
I mean, it's worth saying that as a sequence, awesome. The music, the visuals, I love that scene.
White Room by Cream.
Oh, I mean, and,
So
and
good.
just that very action of him taking the blood and doing like the blood smile.
Yeah.
That is possibly one of the most iconic shots of that
I
film.
know,
Fully
it's
transformed.
So cool.
So on the nose and so perfect, though.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of
Spot on.
the
A smile made of
heavy-handed-
blood. Like,
yeah.
come on, that's
It's heavy-handed, but you gotta give it to him.
it's great. Good
sometimes
imagery.
it's there for a reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just like that. Even if they had that scene and then something after it that kind of displayed him, like again, just cap it off like they did Wolf of Wall Street. Like give some level of what he did wasn't good. Like this, I don't know.
I kind of love that last scene where he's back in custody.
Benny Hill run around.
Yeah, well, first of all, I love the moment, and it's actually saved the alleyway murder scene for me when he's sitting there just laughing to himself, thinking about Bruce Wayne and his dead parents. Bruce Wayne, who may be his brother, and she asks, what's funny? He's like, you wouldn't get it. I'm like, that is such a great driving force for that character, for that relationship. It's brilliant. And then when you just see him walking out of there, blood on his feet.
Yeah.
He's killed the woman in there, evidently. Like, this guy is just now the Joker. He is an evil bastard. And he's going to be a horrible...
Cunning like that now.
He's going to be this horrible part of Gotham forever now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting...
But again, that is using the overall kind of mythos around this movie.
That's why I'm saying I love
justify-
this as a DC movie.
Yeah, because again, just as a film on its own, it's a very different ending. And
Potentially, yeah.
and that's what kind of and maybe I was kind of my own worst enemy because I said I'm going to go into this and I'm going to judge it as its own film, and it was only those moments where I allowed it to be part of that mythos that I was like, okay, this seems a lot more fine because it's the beginning of something that I know how this goes. But as its own film, as its own piece, that ending felt very, just weird, I guess.
Do you
Can
guys...
I quickly?
Yeah,
Sorry. I just want to just kind of move on from this because I just need to get this out there. The whole handling of what? Listen, I've got a major problem with the pharmaceutical industry. I think that
just
I think that they're just shoving drugs down people's throat a lot of the time. But there is one decision this character makes, combined with that ending with the crowd, the character decides to stop taking their meds. And granted, the social worker says you can't get any more prescriptions. So yes, fair enough. But there was almost like, I finally see clearly, and I think you know, there's some danger there. There's some danger here. But at the same time, I'm like, fuck, man, I love heavy metal. I love death metal. I love horror movies. You know, how can I justify all of these decisions across all these creators?
Also, when he stops taking his meds, he becomes a murderer. So I feel like the message is clearer there.
What are you against a message that this is making?
No, I just think
what's
it's
the
sort of
actual-
saying like, if you're mentally unstable, don't take your meds and you might transform into what you want to be. And I just don't know am I looking into this too much?
And I think that's completely at odds with what the movie is saying. I think that's a misreading. I think it's a valid, understandable misreading. But I think you can't lay that at the feet of the film because I do not think it's saying like stop taking your meds. You become awesome.
It's definitely not saying that, but it can't be. It's a part of the film and it's in there. And for whatever reason, I zoned in on that because, you know, fuck, man.
See, now I thought that was the absolute crux of the movie was that the healthcare system failed this guy and he became a monster.
Yeah.
I thought that was the whole
and that
point.
is definitely part of it for sure. So. Just wanted to get that out there. I just think there was a couple little details where they could have ironed it out and really made this a much more poignant film.
So yeah, it's strange. I mean, I don't think that has anything to do with the meds per se. It's kind of
It feels like a major plot point to me.
I mean, in terms of what they could have done better. Like, I don't think, I think that's fine. I don't think that they need to explain that anymore. In fact, any more explanation on that, and I would have probably felt like they were spending too much time on it.
I didn't want necessarily explanation. I just think that it could have been maybe handled a little better.
Yeah, definitely. Do you guys have a concrete opinion in your own mind about the his fatherhood, his fathership?
I loved.
Is he a Wayne?
You know, this reminds me. What I love about this film is the character study element of it. It reminds me a lot of Taxi Driver, of course, but it reminds me a lot of American Psycho, The Machinist. You know, I love those kind of films, and this is definitely in that ballpark. We haven't seen that for a while, and I can go back and watch this film from this
Like Shutter
perspective
Island.
and that
Like you can-
perspective, and I just think. Not knowing and the ambiguity is what I love more than anything. Than whether it's in this camp or that camp.
Yeah, I think I'm the same, Connor.
I'm leaning towards that he's not a
Yeah.
Wayne, just because there was the adoption record that it shows
Yeah, but you could definitely see that Thomas Wayne
being
setting
faking
that up.
it.
Couldn't
So, yeah,
you?
so I agree with you. I like the ambiguity.
It's very well
of it.
balanced.
Yeah.
One thing I loved about this movie, and it's such a weird little thing, was the super rat plaguing the city.
I heard about this. I totally missed this.
So you know they're talking about the news
Yeah.
about the super rats, and then you see one in a subway scene.
I heard
and it
about
is a
that.
giant ass rat. It is so comic booky. It's so Gotham. I'm like, that is awesome. Like that actually feels like a
I
world that 20
completely
years
missed
down the
that.
line you might have a man bat. You know, it was just such a weird little touch, and I'm like, oh, they are kind of making a comic book movie
Yeah.
here. I thought it was really fun.
Was that in the last scene where he went into
So this
the
is
train?
the next scene I want to talk about. It was at the end of this scene where he shoots the Wall Street dudes
Oh, yeah.
in the train carriage.
Yeah.
And then as he's running away at the very end there's a giant rat.
I've
fucking
completely
awesome.
missed the rat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So yeah, this scene, the scene where first blood is drawn, I think it is one of the best scenes I've seen all year. The ramping up of the sound of the train carriages running along the tracks as this situation is reaching boiling point, I thought was amazing. And then when that first guy gets his brains blown out over the roof, I was just like, holy shit.
I didn't think that was going to happen.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, that's what they're doing with this movie.
Yeah. Was it more of a shock than when the gun fell out at the kids' hospital? 'Cause
That was amazing as well.
There was an audible gasp.
Yeah,
in
and that was one of the
theater.
two. That was one of the two really funny moments in a fairly humorless Joker movie. Was he drops that gun, his reaction is like, "Ooh!"
Yeah.
And then the other one when he walks into the glass door, I liked as well.
But I liked how documentary style it stays on the wide. You know, the gun falls out beneath him. It doesn't go to a close up of like the bling and like a loud sound, like oh, and then goes into close ups of everyone's eyes. You're just staying wide, seeing how the scene plays out.
Makes
and
it
it's
more
totally
awkward as
awkward.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was very great, really well done. Very great direction from Todd Phillips there. Yeah. You know, that whole that clown class or whatever the fuck, I don't even know, that clown employer, what would you call it, with that locker room that he was with? You know, all these different
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
clowns.
the clown
Yeah,
camp
Clown
agency.
Academy or something.
Yeah.
That was just really interesting
I love
layer
that.
to it, and like I was thinking like clowns, man. There's a lot of responsibility on
Yeah,
clowns.
the
But very
80s
much
was
like-
boring as shit, huh?
Very much like New York clowns. Like
Yeah.
I loved it. Like this was just like the back end of a clown. Fuck, I don't even know what you would call it. Like like an academy or something.
Yeah, totally weird,
Yeah.
but a great setting. A great setting. Anything else to discuss?
Oh god, there's probably tons to discuss about this movie, but nothing that
Mark
jumps to
Maron
mind.
was very wasted.
Who?
Mark Maron,
Who was
Oh
he?
yeah.
famous podcaster.
Oh,
He was Murray Franklin's like PA kind of guy. Just there for a scene.
did we already reference the Martha Wayne and Thomas Wayne thing? I know I already talked about that, but
The alleyway scene.
yeah. Any comments there? Third time we've seen it in a decade or something.
Yeah. So when they walked out of the Zorro the Gay Blade, which is a new one for that, but and they kind of went around the alley and you saw the guy, I'm like, stop it, leave it there.
Yeah.
Because I thought that was enough. And then even with that, I think you could still have the bit at the end where he's laughing and you see Bruce in the alley. I think that would probably do it. I think it was over the top. But like I said, the ending kind of salvaged it for me.
I just hated
Yeah.
the pearls. Once again, I
The
was
pearls was too much.
I was literally watching the Zack Snyder Justice League.
Did you like
Yeah.
the direct tying it in with the Joker's movement where he's like,
Sorry, Batman v Superman. Sorry.
hey,
yeah,
Thomas,
so, I
you
mean,
get what you deserve. and he shoots him.
For once, it actually makes sense as to why they went into an alleyway.
Mm.
It is never like, I mean,
Yeah, where was the limo?
whatever it is.
Where was Alfred?
Yeah. But for
Um,
once, it made sense as to why they got out of the street.
I did. I love the moment where I didn't love the entire talk show appearance. Very heavy-handed. I love the moment where he shot Murray. Where they're kind of yelling at each other. And he's like, "You get what you fucking deserve," and just blows his head
yeah,
off.
Yeah.
I thought that was brilliant.
Very intense.
Mm.
Very
Yeah.
intense.
I was
And
still,
to see De Niro not only delivering for once, but also copping it like that.
Yeah, he really didn't phone it in.
Striking. No,
He was a
great.
little bit different than he normally is.
Mm.
I've got to say though, I was still reeling a bit from the heavy-handedness of the script
Mm.
previous to that. Like, I mean, the Joker yelling out like, "What do you get when you give like a mentally unstable person?"
Society steps over you.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I was still like,
Wait, don't cut. I have a message.
mm-hmm.
I loved his joke book as well. Like some of those, he clearly didn't get comedy. He was well, number one,
Oh.
the shot on him going in with the laughter.
Yeah,
The
that-
audience laughing.
And he's just
then
way out of sync. Yeah.
so fantastic. And then going in on his notepad and seeing like funny equals sexual jokes or something.
Mm.
He clearly doesn't understand the nuance of comedy and he's taking it on face value. That only added to the character to me.
didn't understand social cues. Didn't understand like, yeah, I
That-
think it
borderline
was,
illiterate.
And that's the beauty of filmmaking. If you're reading a novel, it's like, how do you convey the audience laughed, and then in the awkward pauses, you can't convey that kind of thing so elegantly in a novel.
it's very striking to see it visually, and you can hear it. Like
That's where I love, this medium is so great. And when it's pumping like that, I just think this is what I want to be seeing. This is the kind of shit I love,
Mhm.
So other than a few little gripes that maybe I'm not even 100% convinced by, I think this is an awesome film. I think it's a really great film. And there's some darkness in humanity. And if we don't put these things out there, if we don't talk about them in art, that's where the problems arise. I think you've got to reference these things. It's just part of the deal. It's part of the deal.
Part of the deal, baby. I absolutely, I absolutely adored this movie. I don't think it's anywhere near as shocking or dangerous or provocative as people thought it was going to be. I
definitely felt uncomfortable in this film, though.
Yeah, but in the way of how tense it was, certainly. I don't think director Todd Phillips is doing any favors for it. He's going out there saying a lot of dumb stuff.
Yeah.
What has he said?
He's going out there saying
wokeness
you can't-
ruined
wokeness
comedy.
is ruined comedy.
Oh,
You can't make
that's
comedy
right. Yeah,
anymore.
yeah,
And
yeah.
everyone's coming out being like, "Hey, here's a million funny things that are coming out right now, and they're better than The Hangover 3." I'll tell you that much. And then there's all the stuff about like Joaquin Phoenix walking out of interviews because they ask about how provocative this movie is and the issues they're trying to talk about, and it's like that's kind of over the top. Like if you're going to make a movie about this stuff, be prepared to talk about it and back it up, because I think the movie is really good, and I think you can defend it in that context even.
What actually
Yeah.
happened there?
I don't know. I haven't actually watched it
Me
because
neither.
I can't stand uncomfortable interviews, and I think he's a bad interviewer at the best of times.
Oh,
anyway,
he's
he
terrible.
can be such a prick, but all the great actors are, I guess. Not that that's an excuse, but yeah, it's just like
All the greats are.
all the greats are. Yeah, I walk out.
If
of
he
interviews
wasn't
all
a
the time.
prick, I'd be pissed off.
Yeah, I think if if they were just engaging a little more with the conversation, maybe it wouldn't be as back and forth. And if Todd Phillips was maybe being a little more eloquent about the movie he's made,
Yeah.
instead
think-
of the
I
ones he doesn't think he can,
Like
for
you said,
some
like,
reason.
he's got the film behind him. It's a good film. Like
Yeah,
stand
and
by
if he
it.
can
Like,
keep his mouth shut, he's probably going to be up for an Oscar. So
Yeah.
he should behave.
Yeah. I honestly think, like, I know he's got the screenwriting credit here. I know he's the director, but I put so much weighting of this film on Joaquin Phoenix.
well, listening to how they were consulting each other on that, you've got to.
Well, you didn't think Old School was this good?
I'm not going to say on this podcast. I'm not going to say.
That means it's a yes.
My boy Blue. I love you, Blue. All right. When old school references come out, that's probably when you got to shut off the review.
Shut her down.
hmm
Well, really interesting. I've been looking forward to talk about this one for a while. And there we have it. We'll be possibly talking about it later on in the year with our best of, worst of the year. Who knows? But we'll be back next week for something great. Don't know what it is. Do we have a movie next week?
El Camino's coming out soon, isn't it?
El Camino. A Breaking Bad movie.
A Breaking Bad movie Netflix.
Oh,
Camino.
shit. A Netflix movie, El Camino. A Breaking Bad movie. Make up your fucking mind. All right, Connor. See you next week, bro.
Bye.
See you, Ben.
Bye, everyone.